All members of the committee are present. First order of business is approval of minutes of August 1st.
Motion to approve. Go ahead.
Second.
I move approval.
It's been moved and seconded for approval. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Then we have item 2 on the agenda, which is discussion regarding the sale of CDA-owned property at 6771 West National and lease of adjacent parcel located at 67 Star West Mitchell to Baum Revision for historic rehabilitation and adaptive reuse. And we may go into executive session later on in the meeting. At this time, I'll turn it over to our Leader of Economic Development, Patrick.
Thank you, Alderman Lysak and members of the council. Tonight, we have 2 questions before you. One, it's an introduction of the development agreement with Baum Revision for 6771 West National. And then the other question is the direction of how to move forward, or if you're interested in knowing more about the project and facilitating it to go forward, or other actions that you would like to see economic development pursue. You might recall this is an historic property. It's actually designated to be eligibly historic as a landmark to the National Park Service. It's an old part of the Kearney Trekker Corporation. Actually, it dates back to around 1918 and was used as a foundry. The proposed project is a $16 million historic renovation of the property. It's around 40,000 square feet. That would be divided into 2 uses, 20,000 square feet as an event venue and 21,000 square feet as offices and storage for the a prospect that is in the event planning industry. David Baum is here tonight. Scott Goldman and Bryant this is the Baum Revision team, and they will present a little bit about the project following our introduction here this evening. You might recall a little history on the project. This goes back to some members who are on the council today. We bought this property in relationship to the former Briggs and Stratton. The foundry that was at the site, it was Motor Castings at the time. Not Motor Castings. Was that Motor Castings. Yeah.
No, it was malleable iron.
Yeah.
No, it was called something else. Milwaukee
Yeah.
Duck, but it had another name, Motion Industries or something like that. That was the lead company that owned the site, and then they closed the site and they went to demolition. And we bought it through that process, thinking this would be a great opportunity for redevelopment. And through that process, we toured the 6771 property, and it was wrapped with this white steel panel. And we got inside, and all of a sudden, all this cool steel and open space and mezzanine levels, and we thought this could be reused. And it's taken some time. We've gone through COVID, we've gone through Baum Revision, we'll call that 1, and then we went through another developer who realized it'd be really hard to capitalize to do a $16 million project, and they were a smaller firm, and they thought that they just couldn't do that. And now we have Baum Revision 2, which is post-COVID, and now at the stage of ready to go forward. We have worked with the developer. They've secured the letter of eligibility from the National Park Service. They received a letter, I guess it's a commitment letter, a letter of new market tax credits from fire. They are also using PACE financing, etc., with the goal of starting construction later in December if the development agreement moves forward, and opening in May of 2025. Now, this is a 2-year project to renovate this property. It's a complete redo of the inside. And when I say redo, it's not like taking away all the patina, but to make it look like a nice destination place that people want to hold events, fairs, markets, art shows, etc. within the facility. Major deal points here is that the property would be sold for $1. We did pay around $600,000 for this site back when we acquired it, but that also included the parking lot that's adjacent to this site as well. Our goal here is to also facilitate the renovation, but by doing that, there's a space that's adjacent. It's called 67 Star West Mitchell, adding 130 stall parking lot. Now, that's an estimate of parking stalls. We still have to design it, look at stormwater retention, and all those types of things. So it fits well within the context of the neighborhood. Then we have a $200,000 obligation in the development agreement The lateral is failed, based on my understanding. They have to trench utilities into the site or around the property. And when you do that, you disturb dirt. And we have it in the development agreement that we would pay the incremental cost to deal with any environmental soils up to 200,000. So that's where the 200,000 is stated. The deal also would be that Baum Revision would lease the parking lot for $1. And with, in exchange for maintaining it, lighting it, plowing it, et cetera. The proposed tenant might have some service vehicles that would also need to use some of the parking, and it'd be dedicated for some of those vehicles as well, as they provide services across the region. The idea here with the current lease that's proposed of the 21,000 square feet in here is around 10 years, and that our lease for the parking lot would coincide with whatever terms there. Now, through the course of this, as we see, is OPE has been very successful. And when we did the development agreement with OPE, this parking in this back area, I'm just kind of highlighting the back part of their building, was labeled in the development agreement as shared parking. The idea was that this would become a district. People would go to a wedding, go have a beer, and walk into, or attend an event in 6771. The idea is creating a shared parking field. We'll talk about that a little bit more in closed session. This is another thing I wanted to point out. Often we look at OPE and they're parking 80 to 90 vehicles behind their building. This is going to be a venue that would bring 50,000 plus visitors to the site through the course of the year. Probably a lot more than that if you factor in weddings and art shows and different events. But this is a survey of parking in the general area, whether you factor in the senior center parking lot, all within a short walking distance of the facility. Now, some of it is privately owned, some of it is on the street, as in right-of-way. There are underutilized areas currently in this area. There are some signs, I believe, that are legacy signs left over from when there was a manufacturing plant along Mitchell that says no parking. So we need to review those. We just haven't done that yet. So there could be additional street parking within this area as well. But we just wanted to point out 294 off-street parkings within a 2-minute walk. I just recently went downtown for my daughter's birthday party celebration. We parked 4 blocks away in a parking structure and had to pay. I mean, it's 4 blocks. This is within 2 blocks of the particular site. So TIF 14 was created when we acquired all the land of the former foundry that was in this area. Metal Technology, see, it had another name, and I couldn't remember it off the top of my head. And the idea here was that we want a rehab of this site, facilitate a development here, and these are the current estimated values on these sites. It's around 19 million, 20 million or so for the behavioral health hospital. OPE is around 1.4 million today. The TIF is actually performing quite well. The idea here is that if we go forward, with the current plan with development for the 1.2 for parking and the environmental costs, the TIF would probably be extended to 2029. If you do nothing and decide just leave the building, we don't want to go forward, we'll figure this out. Now, that's not a real option, but with the current amount of debt, it'd probably take to 2027 to close that TIF. If you want the building raised, if you decide that's the direction, then this TIF would be extended because we would have to work to facilitate the demolition, which is estimated around 500,000. We would have to probably incentivize some development on that site, et cetera. If you look at what we've done for the current market rate apartments in our West Dallas area, we have provided TIF, et cetera. There are ways, and we can talk a little bit more about that when we go into closed session. But the TIF is performing quite well. The proposed use would bring in 24 jobs. You're bringing a headquarters of a business into this space that's currently vacant. It's going to bring activity. It's going to bring 56 part-time positions. And there is opportunity for growth within these particular areas. And I'll let Baum Revision talk a little bit about that growth and use of the property. Again, if this was, and this is just an example, if it was renovated, this is with clear windows. I've been asked, what about these windows? And I know Baum can talk about it further, but there are color panels in the current building. That would be great to restore to that, but ultimately the National Park Service will say, well, we think the period of time should be X, and that's clear windows. And in order to get the historic tax credits, you have to adhere to the standards of interiors standards that they have, and that's what dictates the really the rehab of the property. I think you would talk about that a little bit further in your presentation. But when you look at the event space and how it could be used, it's weddings, it's corporate events, indoor farmers markets like a winter market, a Chris Kindle market inside, etc., art shows, festivals, music, workshops, music outside. In the plan here, this is the before layout. They have kitchen prep space for food. They have there's bride rooms and storage here for the event space and staging and loading areas for their service vehicles. A patio. I know someone asked where do the smokers go if they outside. They do have plans for a patio and it's outside. Well, maybe the patio is a place for a Thursday night jazz concert. There are opportunities for things like that, and they have properties that the Balm Revision operates that do have events of that nature. But this kind of gives you a kind of a look of what this property would look like renovated. The impact of the event space, of course, it's tax base, it's visitors. It builds on the synergy of what we've been trying to achieve along the National Avenue corridor, to bring people in, bring trips into our city so that they visit a place to eat. They use a hotel possibly, or go to Beecher Street, etc., so that there's multiple things for people to go to. And it's something called stickiness, creating place. And this creates something that will not compete with the vision that we see in other areas that like the three-leaf proposal on 85th and National. Maybe there's a SONA 2 in the future, or if there's a proposal in the 70th and Washington area for additional apartments in the future. There's growth in those areas, and if we renovate 6771, it wouldn't compete with those other projects while creating something that will bring people here. It also would be a place that would partner with Oak Brewing as a wedding. You would have a beer beforehand or after. It just kind of works together. And with this type of place, they need florists. They need places to get their hair done. They need places to people to take pictures, etc. Caterers. The overall project is $16 million. We had SB Freeman review the pro forma. There is limited equity in it, but if based on the level of new market tax credits and historical tax credits and PACE financing, this is pretty common within the industry to use these creative financial tools on a property. This is a significant risk. This is a 2-year rehab of a large property that's 1918. So there's significant contingency and things like that. We're below market actual return. The potential timeline of things that need to happen. CDA, did listen to the development agreement, has taken it up. This is an introduction of the development agreement tonight with the idea that it can go before council on September 5th. The CDA will then have a public hearing on the sale of the land if the direction is to go that way on our September 12th meeting. And we proceed with the sale of land. Here's another historic picture of the industrial complex that was in this area. This is the actual building. And you can actually see the railroad spur here that came actually into the building. And this is the way it looks today. It's a very unique space. And then at this point, I'll turn it over to Balm Revision to answer any questions and present their portfolio and project.
Thank you. Yeah, get out of the way here for you guys. Well, that was a great presentation, Patrick. You covered it. I think it goes without saying, we've been working with the City of West Allis for a long time, and you guys are really well served by Patrick and Sean and the rest of the team. I mean, we work with a lot of cities, and they've been wonderful to work with, really collaborative and proactive, and just want to acknowledge that. But we're very excited for the opportunity to do this. Obviously, we recognize this is a public-private partnership, and we've been working on it for a long time. This is what we do. We redevelop historic buildings across the country. We've done about 100 projects in 11 different states. And we take buildings like this that need a very particular vision and a use, and we activate them. And the way that we decide on how we activate them is we really take cues from the community and listen and figure out what the need is, what the use is, and what the right demand is that fits with the structure. And so we first got involved in this building, and then unfortunately COVID hit, and it was unfinanceable at that time. And then we got re-involved a couple years later, and we've spent, I don't know, it was a 6-month plus process working with the National Park Service. So that was one major contributor to the timeline here that I think is important to highlight, to address the windows. So the way National Park Service works for historic tax credits is they administer the program for the IRS, which creates these credits, which we then monetize by selling them to a bank. And then we use that as capital to subsidize the redevelopment costs that are extraordinary for these buildings. And so the National Park Service has a say on every single detail of the building, as Patrick highlighted. And the windows in particular were sort of a binary event, because if they had to be maintained in their current form, those windows have no insulation. You can't really have a tenant occupy them, the mechanicals wouldn't work, it's just not feasible. And so for a period of time, they debated between reusing the existing windows in some form of replacement. And we ultimately succeeded in going through replacement. There's a lot of back and forth on that, so that took quite a bit of time. But our particular vision, as Brian and David will detail with the tenant, is very similar to a bunch of other projects we've done, which is to activate the project through an event space with a tenant who's in the business of providing services to events. So a portion of the building would be used for their day-to-day business, which is to do that, and then a portion of the building would be used for events. And we do this, you guys might most be familiar with Garber Feed Mill. I think years ago, a group from West Dallas went and visited the project. And that's a really good example, right? That project is anchored by an event space. That's a large central space, and then have some ancillary tenants around it. And then within that, we do weddings, corporate events. We do the farmer's market inside there in the winter. We produce concerts, all sorts of different things. And really, our job isn't necessarily to dictate what the events are specifically. It's to build beautiful space. It's to support the creative arms of the community to make sure they're aware of the space, and then work with them to activate it. And that's really our vision here, and I think that vision meets well with what the objectives are of the CDA with this project in particular, which is to restore the building, to create velocity for the community, to have a project that's enduring and stable, and that's what we got planned. Turn over to you to kind of take.
Yeah,
to this
I mean,
stuff.
if you wanna slip ahead a couple more. Yeah, I mean, Scott kind of went over this. This is Patrick, the process really, it's a 2-year build, but it's been a multi-year process. I mean, just to get to this point, Scott detailed the historic review, working to define the tenant, the uses, get through a budgeting process with general contractors to make sure, this will all work. It's easily, we're gonna be 4 or 5 years into this process. So it's not a small endeavor, but this is a special building that requires, special attention. Go ahead, next slide. So I know there has been some questions about kind of like the optics of what the building will actually function as. It's actually about closer to 48,000 square feet of total space. Programmable might be a little bit smaller, but about a third of it, about 18,000 square feet, will be that event space. And that's really that atrium space, that wonderful, hopefully many of you have now been in the building, that voluminous 3-story space with the windows. And our goal is to really maintain that feel of the space. It's got the old steel, it's got the masonry, it's got the glazing. We want to gently rehab those aspects of it, but ultimately keep that a very open space so that people can do all sorts of different activities in there. We've mentioned a number of typical events that would happen in a space like that, but an event venue of this size just doesn't really exist in the market, so it creates a lot of those options for things that we can't even imagine. People come to us with all sorts of ideas, and a space like this will be 4 seasons and be able to accommodate a lot of different activities. And then we have a lot of complementary spaces, so spaces that either support the event space. So again, Patrick went over some of this, like a prep kitchen for a caterer to come in and serve the food. And then the balance of the space is really utilized for the tenant. So this is an existing business in the region, so they'd be moving their headquarters into the space. They have, I think, 30 to 40 desk areas kind of programmed for the office. And then the single story, which is on the south side of the building, eventually is their warehouse. So they continue to do their existing event business, but then they'll also have a fabrication shop where they'll be able to create interesting things for the events, both within the building, around the building, and then for their other events. And then we have obviously some mechanical space. So next slide.
I have a question on that slide.
You betcha.
The fabrication.
Yep.
What would be fabricated? Is it metals? Are they welding? Is it noise? Is it
Yeah,
smells?
it's like, I would say it ends up being about a 2,000 square foot area. But yeah, it's like welding, it's woodworking, painting, things that they need to create for events, whether it's a showpiece for
Got it.
a wedding or something that is, you know, an art piece for a certain kind of event that they're participating in. So,
Thank you.
Yep. So these are some renderings. We have 3 of them. I know Marty was very adamant about having some visuals. These are a little bit outdated, but for the most part tell the story of, you know, how the space can be utilized for events. You can see that, again, it's a very gentle touch in terms of the event space, you know, trying to maintain exposure to as much steel, as much masonry, as much windows, which really makes that space so unique and so special and gives it that wow factor that we saw when we first went in it. I've had the opportunity to bring dozens of people through, and everyone just, you know, is floored with the space because it's one of a kind and will create really a architectural jewel, I think, for the city of West Allis. I think the building itself will be a reason people want to come to the space. Next slide. And there's just another view of kind of, you know, the dramatic use of a space that, you know, just does not really exist. We're you know, working with an architect who and ourselves have just never been in a space quite like this before, and I think will be you know, very special for the community. And then the next slide takes advantage of, so there is a mezzanine on the 2nd floor, and that's where the office space is for the tenant. So at least gives you a sense of what the layout will be in the primary public areas of the space. Next slide. So there also has been questions about the tenant. So due to the kind of nature of the situation, you know, we have to keep a certain level of confidentiality. I know some of you have gotten some good information about them, but we're extremely excited about who this is. I think that for the city of West Allis to bring this level of talent to the community and what they do and how they activate spaces and think about community, I think is going to be something that you all will be very proud of, and they'll fit within the goals of what the CDA and the community have laid out for this particular project. So they're a very experienced operator. This is not someone who's just starting from the ground up. These guys have 20 years of experience plus with their existing business, but probably dozens and dozens of years amongst their 50 plus staff members who are all in this industry. And most importantly, they're just a very creative group of people. So, you know, again, we can sit up here and say a few things about what we think the space will be used for, things that we know the space will be used for, but a space of this nature with this optionality, this flexibility, presents all sorts of opportunities, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But this type of organization is the kind that we like partnering with because of their way to see opportunities for these types of uses. So I think the rest of it we've kind of covered, or at least Patrick covered as well too. Next slide. So again, just to give you a rundown of the types of events, I break them into 4 different categories, but at the end of the day, we expect there to be somewhere between 50,000 and 100,000 visitors annually. I tend to think that's conservative, but it'll be something that builds over time, as we've seen in all of our venues. But basically, there are 4 types of categories. So the public events, which, you know, again, are the public markets, the festivals, things that invite in large numbers of people at any given time over a day or perhaps a weekend or perhaps even longer. We'll have private events. Those tend to be, you know, smaller on average for the most part, but serving a variety of community needs. We also see a lot of nonprofit organizations utilizing these types of spaces, so that can be for fundraisers or galas. I know this area is flush with those types of organizations, so we expect that this will also be a space that will allow them to do bigger events, which will have bigger impact and farther reach for their organizations. And then the other category, which is the fun category, that's where, again, all sorts of things could happen in the space of this size that just doesn't exist, whether it's, you know, we talk about pickleball or car shows, various different kind of food and beverage experiences. It's really a limitless number of opportunities when you have a venue of this size and the type of operator that is capable of doing the things that we see happening. Next slide. So, you know, we, as Scott mentioned, we have a whole history of these types of projects. I'll just quickly go over the Garver Feed Mill. I know some of you have had an opportunity to visit. But I think this is, in many respects, Garver 2.0 in the sense of we've learned a lot from that specific experience, the type of venue that it is. There's a lot of similarities, and we plan to really kind of exceed and build off of those experiences. So just quickly, could you go to the next slide? Here's the project kind of in its beginning states, and afterwards, if you've been in Kearney Trekker, you know it's not nearly as bad as this, but our organization has a history of taking on pretty complicated projects when it comes to the restoration side of things, and I think this photo does a great job of showing you, how transformational Garver has been, and as a result won many awards, which I would have expected we would do the same with West Allis as well too. So just a few highlights of some of the events that we do in the Garver building. Next slide, please. As mentioned, the farmers market we do in the winter for 14 Saturdays, January through April. It's extremely popular activity for the community. We have over 2,000 people in the space. If we had more room, we would certainly be able to do more people. We've got somewhere between 25 and 30 vendors. Many have actually also served the Milwaukee market too, and I've mentioned this project to a few of them, and they are ecstatic about the opportunity to have a winter market in the Milwaukee region. If you followed the kind of the scene here, they've really been stuck without a venue, and to have a place of this nature is very exciting for them, and they are ready to go when we are. So that's just one example of activating the space for community benefit. One of the other things that we do is kind of these other kind of markets. One of the more popular ones we do is the Vintage Flea Market, which is now twice a year. Over 1,500 people come through the space on any given of the 2 weekends that we do it. And we have about 40 to 50 small businesses that use this as a platform to basically either start or grow their business, which I think is one of the amazing opportunities, the way we operate our spaces, the number of local businesses that get an opportunity to be touched through the operation. And in this case, this is an opportunity for people to get in front of thousands of people and to determine whether or not their business might be ready for a more permanent retail front or something of that nature. Next slide. We do a lot of music as well too. When we did Garver a few years ago, we started, I would have never imagined the popularity of our music, and we've been very fortunate to find a partner who's very connected to the arts and cultural scene. And I would anticipate very similar at Kearney and Trekker as well too, where we have opportunities for either the patio space, doing smaller jazz concerts, things of that nature, or we have a large indoor space that could accommodate for concerts as well. We're not a concert venue in the sense that, concert venues are made for that, but we do have a space that can work for more regional local acts that draw, slightly bigger crowds than your average local band. So I imagine that will also be something that will be a big part of the Kearney and Trekker development. Next slide. And then private events, we've talked a little bit about that, the weddings, quinceañeras, retirement parties. There's just a need for bigger event spaces that is not really being met in the market area, and so we anticipate this venue will be able to support that. Also mentioned some of the nonprofit events as well too, so we don't need to dwell on that. So, yep, and these are just photos of just different community events that we have, and similarly, we would try to activate the space to create opportunities for public engagement. But again, the type of space this is creates endless opportunities, as well as does the partners. But ultimately, we look to you as well for ideas on how we can utilize the space. Next slide. So I can sit here and talk all day about the success of our projects, but I did want to leave you with at least a few quotes here. I'll give you a second to read. These are older folks in our community, just like all of you here today, who I think would be the first to say that we really exceeded expectations in what was a very difficult project, and we're taking a very similar tact, a very similar approach with West Allis, and expect that the results will be equal, if not better, given the opportunity to move forward. So I did want to give those folks an opportunity to at least share their experience with us. In the next slide, we've also partnered with our local tourism bureau, as we would in this area as well, to really activate the space. They have been an amazing partner into showcasing what we've been able to develop. but also bring us new ideas and opportunities. We've had national television shows come to our space and use it as a backdrop for shoots. An amazing opportunity recently with the Public Relations Society of America having their annual conference in Wisconsin, and we got to host the Media Mixer, which brought together 250, 300 travel writers, bloggers, influencers, all under one roof, all into our building. So working with the local Visitors Bureau is absolutely something that we want to do and plan to do with the activation of this space to create interesting and new opportunities. So I'll turn it over to David then to just highlight a few other projects. So Garver is one example, but we have, as Scott mentioned, plenty of examples of these types of projects throughout the Midwest.
Good evening. I'm David Baum. Haven't met a lot of you, so nice to meet you. Scott had mentioned we've been working with staff for here for a few years, and it's been great. Also want to thank all of you for your time and your dedication to what you've done for your city. We've been watching the evolution here. I mean, we love the building, but we've also watched what you have created over the last few years with apartments, with OPE, with other things. It's really impressive. We're looking forward to being part of the campus, but for that, to be candid, we probably wouldn't be here. Like, we couldn't be an island. It doesn't work. So, great job. I'm a bit uncomfortable sitting up and bragging. I don't like to, but I also recognize that you need to know who we are and that this isn't our first time doing it. So you can see by my gray hair or lack thereof, I've been doing this for a long time. We have won dozens of awards for what we do. We're featuring Garver because it's close to you and it's akin to what we're doing here, but we have been doing this for a number of decades. We've won lots of awards. This is a project in Chicago. It was the old Hammond Organ building. It was 160,000 square feet. It was in demo court. We bought it in foreclosure. There was literally an entire wall that was collapsing. The sprinkler system didn't work. The elevator didn't work. You name it, it was a problem. We now have a waiting list. And all of the tenants in this space are makers. So they create something. So they distill, they brew, they roast, they make set design, they press albums. There's 160,000 square feet of those makers. But we have this large gallery space, you're seeing half of it, and we do large art shows here. We're also doing, if you can flip the slide, we've done car shows, this is another art show, there's a music event on another one of them. So it runs the gamut. And again, what we're trying to do, Bryant used the word platform, is to create a cool platform with optionality so that you all and we can partner and use our imagination, because who knows what that space wants to be. What we want it to be is memorable and amazing space. And that's what that building and that area provides. This is another project that we did called Rockwell on the River. Again, in foreclosure. It was a wreck. It looked kind of like Garver. This is a wedding venue. It's a venue for all sorts of different things. It's 17,000 square feet. It's on the river. We have a brewery there. We have a distillery. It's booked up for, you name it. Steppenwolf Theater was there for an event. We have nonprofits. We have car shows. So it's anything that it wants to be. Dance shows, markets. We'll flip one more, please. Okay. Got to see where I am. Minneapolis. This is in Midtown. This is another workshop similar to the one in 4200. This is the before pictures. This is after. We're 90% leased. We have, again, an event space. You're going to start to see the DNA. Is we take old buildings that want to be reimagined. We activate them with people that have great ideas. We have lots of optionality so that they have a lot of flexibility so that they're not pigeonholed into one space, but can do a lot of different things. We do things, this whole area is a big, I'm sorry, I'll go back one more.
The touch screen.
Didn't realize. Okay, well, there we go. This whole area, I can touch anything, is a whole big patio, similar to what we're talking about. Okay, next slide. This is between the buildings, so you can do an outdoor venue. We like outdoor space. Everyone wants to be able to think they're going to have their wedding outdoors unless the weather doesn't work. But we do that. a lot of art-filled stuff, yoga. I mean, you could see yoga masters, you could see pickleball. I know you all have food trucks on, is it Thursday or Friday?
Yeah, Friday.
So when it gets cold, let's bring those food trucks in. That whole train car thing, those tracks that are there, there's a giant door. You could drive food trucks right inside, and we could ventilate it properly. So I mean, you could have your food truck Friday inside and have it during the winter, which you know, again, up to the community. I like the idea. Next, please. This is the Garver. I'm sorry. This is Green Exchange. This is on the Kennedy Expressway in Diversey. You're driven by in Chicago. Again, another historic landmark. We won the Development of the Year for this in Chicago. We've won awards for most of them, but we won everything for this one. This is a new event space that we built on top of a sky garden. This space is booked for 2 years. We have indoor and outdoor events. Again, similar stuff. We actually have a full outdoor garden, a level below this, on 2/3 of an acre. We grow all of our own food. It's all organic. We'll keep going. Just more of Garber. Oh, if y'all have seen, this is a new one. Have you seen The Bear, the show, The Bear on FX? So that was filmed in this building. Again, you don't know what could happen in there if you have great space. Cool television shows we filmed in your space. Yeah. We'll go to the next one. Where am I? Okay. This is Portland. So this is another one. This is similar, makerspace, creators, event space. We're actually looking to redesign this and to make a much bigger event space because there's been great demand. Keep going, please. This is Boise, Idaho. So if any of you have been to Boise, or if you'd been there 15 years ago, no one knew where Boise was. Everyone's like, Iowa? I'm like, no, it's Idaho. We bought the downtown, it's arguably the best block in Boise, and it was 60% vacant. The other 40% was not something you'd be proud of. Today we're 100% occupied, but for one office space. All the retail is occupied. And in the middle, we had some artists, an artist that was graffitiing on the walls. And I liked it. And I went to meet with him, and he was, he was recovering. And we said, to this day, we're partners. Let's do more of it and invite your friends. And it became Freak Alley. And I went to the mayor, and I said, I'm telling you, this could be really cool. Just let us do what we do. And it's on our buildings. It's going to be a tourist destination. And the mayor, he laughed. I mean, he wasn't offensive, but he was like, okay, David, have a good time. I know you like to dream. Check out Freak Alley. If you watch the Boise State football games, they will pan to Freak Alley. If you look on TripAdvisor or any other list, it is the top 10 things to do in Boise, Freak Alley. It is the largest outdoor muralist gallery in that region, in the mountain region. It's all original artists. There have been music videos filmed in this alley. There are commercials that are filmed in this alley. Harley Davidson did an ad. And it's just art. And we have ideas of how that could potentially play. So we're just trying to give you a flavor for the different things that we do and how it activates, and it's limitless. Okay, this is WMS campus. We have a new event space opening here in a couple months in a Bow Trust building. And this is our brand new project that's going to open up next month. This is the Ramova Theater. So this is a 100-year-old movie theater. Sorry if I'm in your way, I don't mean to turn my back to that. 100-year-old movie theater. It has been vacant for almost 30 years. And it used to be the center of the town, of Bridgeport, of the neighborhood in Chicago. It's near where the White Sox play. And it has been vacant and has been sucking the energy out of the community. And we finally bought it a few years ago. Again, historic renovation. We partnered with a music promoter. And we're going to open up next month. We have a laundry list of A-listers that are involved in the project on the entertainment side, but we have a music connection there. And we've been talking to them about the idea that if you're coming to Chicago, you should come to Milwaukee, and you should come to Madison and go to Minneapolis. So there's that available too. Again, none of these things are prescribed. Nothing has to happen. It's all optionality. It's all what the community decides, and we're looking for a partnership. So if you like Food Truck Fridays, let's do that. If you want more the Saturday market in the winter, let's do that. I mean, and it can change. It doesn't, again, it's not a static thing. So, we can give you, you may have already done this, we can give you those references, you can call the mayor in Boise, you can check all those things out, you can look online, it's all, discoverable these days. But we've been doing this for a long time. The last thing I wanted to say is this is what gets us up in the morning. We get excited about activating spaces. If this was about money, there are easier ways. I mean, these are, you get a bloody lip when you do these projects, and we're good for it. But we get excited about this. Scott's wife grew up a few miles from here. He brings his kids up here, I don't know, constantly for their grandparents, for next weekend to go to their, Bryant is from the neighborhood. He brings his daughter here. My daughter went to Wisconsin. I live in Lake County. I mean, this is, for me, like, I want her to be proud of what I do. I'm not interested in building, I don't know, whatever it is, an Applebee's. I want to do cool stuff like this. I want to do stuff that moves the needle, that people get excited about, that people are proud of, that people want to take a picture of and say, this is where I was at. And I think that's this project. So,
Mr.
appreciate your
President,
time.
I have a few
Alderman
questions. So it made a comment on there about 24 potentially new full-time jobs, but there's currently 56 and said based on 40% expected increase. Is the 24 new jobs, we know it's 24 new jobs, or it's 24 new jobs potentially based on the expected growth?
It's based on what they expect, based on moving into this space. So they don't need to get more business beyond the building. But
Right.
this building will produce more events, which requires more staff
Right.
for their company.
And then when you guys say you activate the space, so does your firm are the ones to book a yoga class, to book this, or is it the event, the tenant that is, who's
Yeah. So it'll be,
managing
we will
that?
we will be their partner, but it will be them on a day-to-day basis. They
So
will
they,
be
they'd reach out to
physically,
them to say, I wanna take it for this, I wanna do this, or,
Yes.
or to go out and get it, if it's just sitting there,
it's all the
it's-
above.
okay.
So we're, you may get this from us, we're very hands in the cookie jar kind of people, but we want to let the people that, our experts are on site, do what they do. So,
So then the tenant would maintain the liquor license,
Absolutely.
or the entertainment
yes,
license,
yes.
or?
And they will be primarily responsible for producing the events, for booking the events, and we will be involved. That's how it is at Garver, that's how it is at Rockwell, at all of our spaces. Our operating business is we redevelop real estate. Their business is they produce events. But we get involved with them on a regular basis. I mean, we're not hands-off in any way, but it is their job to produce it.
Part of the reason David showed some of the other things that are going on in the Midwest and our other venues is, and he kind of alluded this to at the end there was, we anticipate that this will be an opportunity for some of the things that we do in any one of those places to be able to move here and to move to the next venue. So it creates a little bit of efficiency. So that's why we get involved. We're like, oh, there was a really good artist who came through, or a really good promoter, or a really good, car show. It's Chicago, Milwaukee,
Right.
Madison, it's all relatively accessible for these types of folks. So our goal is to be able to help connect those and to let our operators do what they do best.
Thank you, that's all I had.
Mr. President?
Alderman Weigel.
I have a couple questions. What do we anticipate the capacity would be for an event there?
Right now, we're about 1,000 people.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's, because the Deco just opened up, they just had their first wedding. I think their capacity is 650.
Okay.
So you'd be fishing in that above 650 range?
We have the capacity to do that,
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, I'm just thinking about competition. Because you were saying that you're the only venue in this market, but really there are others in that market. It's a different kind of venue, I understand that.
yeah, the space itself allows for a lot more opportunity.
Yeah.
David alluded to the garage door, being able to bring things in and out.
We haven't seen any 1,000 people weddings.
Not yet, we just had, because there's nowhere to do it. I mean, there is, but you're not gonna book the, Wisconsin Center or whatever. right? So,
Yeah.
How many of these other projects that we've just highlighted here are single tenant?
The Remova is. I think the Remova.
Okay, so all the rest of these have multiple tenants
Yes.
with like different kinds of businesses, whether it's a coffee shop or a pizza joint
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
offices. And I'm going to the Garber. I mean, my daughter lives in Madison. We were
Yeah.
actually there a week ago Saturday.
Yep.
So I'm probably as familiar with it as anybody else.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, maybe not you guys, but at least the
Right.
council. But, so a lot of the comparisons to the Garver, to me, I mean, that's where we started with this. And we got an explanation. We understand the Garver model is not gonna work. We're filling that void a little bit with Makers Row, you know, not even a quarter mile away, just a
Yeah.
couple buildings away. But this is really this really is different. This is gonna be an office building with, well, the office is for the event business.
Well, it's multi-tenant, but it's really single user to your point.
Yes.
And what I would say is Bryant hit it on the head, which is this is Garver 2.0. The biggest problem that we have at Garver
It's keeping
is
tenants.
it's multi-tenant, and people disturb one another.
Yeah.
And so we're always playing referee.
Oh, okay, I didn't think
And-
about it like that.
And there's problems, and so.
Band's
you-
loud.
Yes, exactly, on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Because we have competing interests. And so when we looked at this, we originally thought it is Garver, and we're gonna do multi-tenant. And then as we were operating Garver, we realized that's our biggest problem. Let's solve that problem. And not only are we gonna have two tenants, but they're the same tenants, so they don't bother themselves,
Yeah.
right? They support themselves. So yes, that's the 2.0.
So this tenant, how much of their business is they currently don't have a location. 100% of their business currently is
For decades.
in other venues,
Yes.
in other venues.
Correct.
And so they're gonna be doing 50+ weddings a year here and a bunch of other events or whatever.
Yep.
So that's gonna be kind of a new business for them, I understand that.
True.
Are they expecting their off-premise business to grow also? And we're coming down to the number of vehicles they have, the number of employees that they have that might be coming to this location but not actually working at this location.
Well, everyone will work there, and then they go.
They go,
from-
yeah, but their job of supporting an event in Caledonia or wherever is, they're actually doing the work somewhere else. And again, we hear this discussion about the business and what it is, it's event space. Do they supply, I don't know, they're not caterers?
No,
They
they
don't have a
supply
kitchen.
the sound, the DJs, the lighting.
Okay, so they don't supply like bartenders and waitresses?
No.
Okay, so it's not like a van full of employees
Nope,
driving
nope,
off?
nope.
Okay, and,
It's the plumbing, so to speak.
yeah, okay, so it's the cool stuff.
I guess.
The stuff that it gets to be, the fabrication I think is really interesting.
Yeah.
You know, I hadn't heard that before.
Yeah.
I think that's, adds a real creativity. You know, I'm concerned, you know, we're still circling on the parking issue, you know, hopefully we find an answer there, or somebody, however the answer gets found. But my concerns were that, you know, I could just see that they're running, that they were supplying, let's say, the service industry side of a huge barn wedding somewhere, and here they got vans that they drive all the bartenders and waitresses and
No, no, no,
busboys
yeah.
out and all that stuff.
It's not a labor thing,
Okay.
yeah.
So,
Sound engineering, lighting engineer, the controls, the props, all
Yeah.
the things that you build, that's
Like-
there.
table and chair rental?
I don't think so.
Yeah, so the storage area is not just gonna be a bunch of tables and chairs?
No.
Or linens?
Just foot rounds.
We do have some storage designed for.
For the premises
for this
there?
space, Yes.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yes, but they're not.
Yeah,
in the
that way you don't have to rent
rental
those. They got, they
Yeah.
have them, they reel them, that's the cost savings.
No.
Yeah. I guess my concern is this, again, we originally pictured the idea that it was gonna be active 7 days a week, most of the day. Maybe a coffee shop, maybe a lunch place, you know, that kind of stuff. But now we're down to call it 70 employees, the 70+ employees that'll be working there. That's a good number. Don't get me wrong, or whatever, it's 56 now and you're gonna add some on.
Well, we're hoping to activate the space
Yeah,
more often than not, if we're doing well.
beyond just weddings.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where
Um,
like food trucks can come in and
well,
kind of fill that role, right?
on-
That flexibility, that optionality.
On the food truck thing, are there successful venues where they drive the food trucks in? The food trucks all have their own little generators running, their kitchen and their exhaust fans running. And you do that in that building and still temper the air for that? You could have, I've been to like I think it's called the paper warehouse or something in Copenhagen. They have a food truck thing, the food trucks are there, and they're kind of like plumbed to the venting in the building.
Yeah,
You know,
Yeah.
as you picture, you know, I was in the restaurant business for 40 years. I know what a kitchen exhaust fan does to the air quality
Yeah.
outside.
Right.
I don't know how, have you done where people
No.
drive food trucks into a building?
we've built, I don't know if it's hundreds, but dozens of restaurants
Yes.
all over the place.
Yes.
So yes, I'm familiar with the CFM requirements. We've talked to our engineers about it and how to vent it.
Yeah.
So
I don't think that's reality, just so you know. It's a great idea. I just don't see that happening where you.
I take your challenge.
Yeah, okay. We also have the windows, you know, I think we fell in love with the look of the buildings.
So do we.
I was yelling at Patrick for taking the skin off, and they just should have torn it down the way it was, but that would have been a shame.
I do have the night picture in here.
Good, because I was looking for it on my phone. I was looking for it on my phone.
I found
didn't-
4 of them.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to be rude, but I was looking, because the night picture is really cool.
Yeah.
And usually when we're at this decision point on a project, we know who the tenant is. Okay, now we know you're the developer and you're half the tenant. And we also have something that's presentable to the plan commission as far as what it's gonna look like. I understand, when do we anticipate having what the National Park Service is gonna sign off on in the?
We have that. We have that.
So is
The-
it
the
clear
windows-
glass?
The windows stylistically will be exactly the same.
Okay.
The difference is that this will be insulated,
Yeah, I
double
understand
pane
that.
glass.
Yeah, yeah.
But stylistically, it's going to be the same.
You're gonna have the multiple blue hues and,
That is to be determined.
Yeah.
That we're still arguing about. And we have ideas about that. So,
and you're gonna have windows everywhere there are windows today,
yeah,
including that south-facing one on the second
Have to.
floor. See, that one would be a challenge to me for air conditioning.
the whole building's a challenge. That's why we said if we can't replace them, we can't do it. We have to have insulated glass,
Yeah.
and we have to have solar shades
So you're gonna have a shade on that glass?
during the summer, absolutely.
Yeah, summertime, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, otherwise it'll just bake
Yeah, and those shades are on the outside or the inside?
inside.
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 Basically a green
So at
space.
Green Exchange, the building on the expressway, we have 20 by 10 windows across the entire expanse, right? And we have solar shades, and they're on computerized motors.
Yeah, temperature,
Yeah.
time of
And they
day or.
come- Yeah, exactly. So, you know, in the evenings, when you wanna see the cool light,
It rolls
those
up.
are up, right? But 3 in the afternoon before the event, and it's baking, yeah, we wanna control the solar game.
Yeah. You know, I have a lot of faith in what you do. I guess you have faith in your tenant. You know, it's not where we started on this.
Yeah, not where we started, for sure.
Yeah, not where anybody started on. I think if we can just wrangle around the parking issue, you know, I think we see the light at the end of the tunnel, you know, but, you know, it would be really cool to have you here, you know. The capacity thing, I know you're gonna be fishing in the same pond as Deco for customers, I understand that. But, and what's the gauges capacity, do you know?
300.
300, yeah, that.
Same
so-
thing with the Hampton.
Yeah,
Yeah, smooth.
yeah, and we'll get another hotel soon.
We
Maybe,
just have one open.
yeah, we just have that, yeah.
Block-
still
couple
event
blocks
space.
away.
Yeah,
If you look at Green Exchange as an example, and our partners' other venues.
so you say Grand Exchange in Milwaukee?
No,
Oh, okay.
Green
Green
Exchange.
Exchange.
That's the one at
Yeah, it's-
Kennedy and Diversity.
Okay.
You will see that we are number 1 or number 2 ranked wedding venue in the city of Chicago, period.
And who operates that?
We have a partner in that operating business, and we are
So you're a
50/50
partner in that
partners.
business too?
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
Okay.
And
And
same in Garver, yeah.
same in Garver.
Garver's top
Yeah,
ranked.
we're partnered.
Operating partner.
Partner with
Yes.
them.
Yeah.
And so we're happy to compete, and we think that it's a rising tide. It just brings more stuff to the overall community, because there's opportunities there.
If I may continue, Mr. President?
Sure.
A single liquor license, just a single combination B, not a class A for selling off premise?
Yeah,
Okay, because caterers would typically use
Yeah,
that.
we haven't even dived into that this.
Well,
Yeah.
we're getting close to the decision point here.
Yes.
And, you know, we've had some other stuff just kind of get slid around and the project was still rolling along and, you know, I just want to make sure it's like, what, they need 4 liquor licenses or, you know. And I think originally we were talking about something like that because there were going to be
Yeah.
multiple locations in there, so. But if it's just really one operator,
yeah.
you know.
That's actually better.
Yes.
Yeah, in that sense.
Exactly.
I think that's all I have right now.
I was part of the group that visit to Garber, and I was very impressed
Oh,
with the
thank you.
miracle that you people did to that building.
Thank you.
There was very little that you mentioned about the second floor aspect, and I was glad you clarified that it won't be as Garber.
No.
The entrepreneurs aren't going to be in those spaces.
Correct.
It doesn't sound like,
Right.
and it sounds like you will be, having offices. Am I understanding that correctly?
An office for the tenant that
Right.
will be operating the events.
Right.
Yes.
And I'm glad you also mentioned the reason why you made the decision that you did. Because I didn't know why you were having offices in the upper level versus having entrepreneurs leasing part of those spaces.
Yeah. I mean, all of the office spaces on the second floor of Garver are entrepreneurs,
Right.
and they all offer a variety of services.
Right.
And we like the way that it works. We have a waiting list there. We have 2 tenants right now that want to get in the building that we can't accommodate.
It sounds like you have problems.
But logistically, yeah, so there's a wellness spa. They want quiet and serene. We have an event space, and then we have Ian's Pizza, and they want to make noise, and you know, we get it, and they get it too. But it creates challenges, and so we want to eliminate those logistical issues here. And on top of it, it's a more expensive build to build out all those individual spaces. And we are just getting the numbers to work as it is. So there's that as well.
But I just wanted to indicate that I didn't.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Alderman
Got a chance
Turner.
to go.
Just want to ask a question. You mentioned it too, the logistics. You were talking about there were going to be some nonprofits as well as your tenant. How are we going to handle that? Because
Nonprofits that would use the
events.
event space.
okay,
There would just be one tenant in 2 forms.
okay,
But we're talking about all of the various things that can happen inside the building.
Like if we held our community gala,
Right.
or
okay,
the Humane Society holds their
Mhm.
big fundraiser, black tie dinner. It's all those nonprofits that Alzheimer's Association.
Right.
But it'd
Which
be a
is- they're
solo
great.
event.
But they're bringing lots of people to West Allis.
Right.
Well, I mean, in Garber, there's some nonprofits that do repetitive events,
Right.
you know, like the markets or whatever, but yeah, maybe something like that.
no, I was just wondering because the tenant would have more than likely the first say, and I just want to make sure that we can really plan things correctly and not have a problem where all of a sudden they say, no, you can't do it.
You know, the nonprofit organizations tend to have their weekday events during the weekdays, which works better for their clientele. The
Okay.
private events tend to do the Friday, Saturday, so it actually extends the use of the space.
Okay.
It just sort of works for everyone's benefit. You can give them a better deal because it's during the weekday, less demand, so that's generally how it works.
Okay.
Are there any other questions for the developers?
Mr. President,
Of course.
One more.
Alderman Turner brought up the farmers, the nonprofit farmers market. We operate, I mean, our staff operates our farmers market. Who operates the winter farmers market in
The,
Milwaukee
the
County?
Dane County Farmers
No,
Market.
in
so-
Milwaukee County, does anybody know?
There is a group, I don't remember but I know one of the first things you wanted to do was meet with our farmers
Yeah,
market
I mean,
team.
we've already met with your team,
Yeah,
and,
Chelsea
I mean,
did.
we're not, we're gonna recreate the wheel here, you guys have a great thing going, let's just build off of that, so if there's a capacity for what exists to grow into year-round, let's, you know,
Well, but the reality is the winter farmers markets really aren't farmers markets, they're more like craft fairs or
But you
makers
get a fair amount
makers
of-
mark, you know.
Yeah, it's a mix, right? You get bakery, you get cheese, you get meat, you know, those are all in the food
Yep.
category. And then, yes, you get some other markety type things, but, it's all small businesses, you
Yeah.
know, and all
Yeah.
from the region, so. But they are tremendously excited, the farmers, and the producers I've talked to, about having a long-term, big venue that can work.
Yeah.
Good.
And we're a lot smaller at Garver than this space, and logistically much more difficult than this space. So we can do something much bigger here, and we're drawing 1,500 to 2,000 people every weekend. Well, does it start in October, November,
January.
January?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
When it gets cold.
if I may, on the slide with the attendance at you had average attendance at a wedding at 150?
175.
Yeah, that's at Garver.
That's in general,
Okay, well, you're not gonna do weddings for hundred and seventy-five people here.
Well, they will.
You will?
We're being
Why not?
conservative on
Okay,
our numbers.
okay, well, then you are competing with a lot of other people. You're competing with every event space.
So what?
Yeah, no,
I would personally think that that's a bonus to the area if you're looking for venues. As you stated, 2 years booked out. Okay, I wanna get married next year. We
Yeah,
need to have
The
options.
gauge was booked out for 2 years. straight.
Absolutely.
Right.
So
Yep.
I truly believe that this is probably something that's gonna be a real, you know, gem for the community.
Well, of course, and plus the parking. I went to a big wedding once, and I had to walk quite a ways to get to parking.
Right,
And the way you're looking at parking here, just a few feet away.
Yeah.
So
Well-
it's really good.
Well, I'll be honest, people today are accustomed to walking a distance.
this is true.
I mean, if you're walking 2 or 3 blocks, that's normal today. I mean, we were at an event yesterday in Bayview, and we had to walk 3 blocks, so what?
Yeah.
No, it's not
Look
a
at the
big deal.
gauge. Most
You
time
just-
park at
People are
MATC,
accustomed to it.
2 blocks away.
I'll be honest with you, it beats going downtown to the Discovery Center and paying $20 to park.
Yeah. Do you envision a valet setup maybe, make an arrangement with Pick and Save? I mean, we had a previous event space that was looking to come to the downtown. They ended up not being able to purchase the building. But they had reached out to a property owner at the bank that had, it's a bank. They had an empty parking lot. And they had already, even before they ended up not buying the building, but even before opening, they were looking to find a way to deal with their parking with using a valet service. You know, and those kids have to run 5 blocks sometimes, I don't get that. But, do you do valet at any of these, do you know?
We do.
Okay,
We do. This wasn't, our vision is, there's a parking lot contiguous,
yeah.
and when it's cold and people are
People want
dressed
to
up
be
in
close.
fancy
Yeah, January,
shoes,
February, yeah,
that's what you wanna do. So that's, the vision is we're contiguous.
yeah.
Makes it very simple.
And the west side is gonna be just a service entrance? The west door?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the north side, there will be an entrance as well
There'll be
too.
a pedestrian entrance on the north
Yep.
side? So like where the, let's say limos come or whatever, they're all gonna, most of people are gonna come in that east side at that door.
Yep.
Okay.
It's the
Yeah.
main entrance.
And do we have even like a plan view of how big the patio might be, what that's gonna look like? We don't know.
We haven't done the finishes of the patio, but yes, we have
A sense of that?
it's dimensioned out, yes.
Okay. Have we seen that? No.
I mean, we've seen the layout, which has the patio, I think I showed last time, if you do.
It was in my slide, I think.
Keep going,
He
keep
might
going,
have-
keep going, keep
I
going.
think he's got, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yep. So, this is National Avenue. Oh, I touched the screen.
There we go. There we
National
go.
Avenue, Mitchell, yeah.
So the patio's gonna be in that space on the stretches to the
this-
south?
This rectangle,
To
Yeah.
the east.
Yeah, yeah. The loading dock is the boundary on the
loading
south.
So
coming
the
in.
side of
That-
Oakland.
That enclosed loading dock on the
Yeah.
south, yeah, there's a wall there, and,
so you've got 3 sides,
yeah.
and then we'll do some sort of plantings to create that 4th wall, and then you've got parking.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, you're good, you're good?
So
Looks
the
like a
patio would be in the
cargo ship.
back of the building?
On the east side.
Yeah, I
side.
mean, this is the front, right, in terms of the facade,
Yes.
but we're gonna treat everything, you're arriving, the parking is here, and your sense of arrival is this way, is coming in from the back,
Parking lot.
right? And so we'll have this patio here,
Oh,
so when you come in, that's what you see, that's your sense of arrival.
right.
Again, the train that came through, I mean, it's really grand in terms of the entrance, your sense of entry is magnificent.
And we're still gonna be talking about the parking.
Yep,
Yeah,
closed session, yep.
that hasn't been resolved yet. And if I may also, during the day, where do the employees that work at the office come in? Is that gonna be the main entrance or a south side there, or?
They'll have both.
Okay.
There's an entrance here that goes into their warehouse space, and there's an entrance here.
You keeping the loading dock?
Oh, absolutely.
And an entrance on the
We're gonna,
north.
we're gonna change the loading dock, though, we're gonna keep it,
So semis?
we're gonna take that out, we're gonna take out the
Fill
grate.
it, yeah.
Okay, you're gonna fill it.
Because we don't need semis.
You don't need semis. And as long as you're here, you can answer these questions. The fleet
That's why we're here.
of, the fleet of surface vehicles for the tenant.
Yeah,
Are they're box trucks?
Yes.
And they're, so like, about the size of, say, a UPS truck or something, or like a.
Size of a box
A box truck, like a U-Haul.
Either
U-Haul,
24 or
like a U-Haul
30
red
box
truck.
truck.
But they're single,
clarify
there's no semis, there's no trailers.
No.
I mean, not even like a trailer that they got, cause they don't rent, because I didn't know until today that they don't rent tents, they don't rent tents?
No.
Okay, so,
And we can arrange for them to, you know,
Answer
come in
these questions?
and-
Yeah.
yeah, they just don't wanna be public about it until we know that it's a deal.
Yep, understood.
Mr. President,
I do want-
I'm gonna say my last word, you know.
Oh,
I'm gonna think of something else.
Oh, my
Hey,
God.
Vince, make sure it's not too late.
Yeah.
Really, based on what I've been seeing for many years, that corner has been really a tour from Second World War structures, you know. So to me, at this point, it really is an aspiration, I think, for the area and for this portion of the city of West Dallas, really, on the east end. To me, I mean, what you guys have been talking about it, to me, it seems it's more of a promise proposal here, which I think will be successful for the city, really. I mean, I don't care about the parking or whatever it takes, but I'm sure everything is gonna work out.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn.
Patrick?
I know parking has come up a couple times, but I think it's fair to talk about a little bit that in open session. So if you look at the picture here, this blue area, that's identified, that's 67 * West Mitchell. The CDA owns that parcel. And part of the development agreement, we said we would build a parking lot in this area. Our goal is maybe 130, maybe more parking stalls. It hasn't been designed yet. The CDA has given staff the authority to go and proceed to get a design, but it's really subject to all the discussions go here this evening. You can see the image that was kind of sketched out and kind of laying out a parking concept. I think that was probably done by a previous developer, but it is in line with Setra. We do have somewhat of competing interests in this area. We have an event space that needs parking. It's an employer that needs parking. We also have a very successful brewery that has found that that area is really convenient for their customers to park. Now, there still has to be continued negotiations on how to blend this, but what was represented from the developers that they would like exclusive rights to that parking field. Mainly because in order to have a wedding, you need to have parking. You also have an employer that needs truck parking for those service vehicles. We also have a goal that when we did the development agreement is that there would be shared parking. Not just like a mall or an area. We want a neighborhood feel. I go to a wedding, I might walk over before the wedding and have a beer. We don't want that person's car towed or, people, it's going to be that. People go to bars before a wedding and then they go to the wedding. We all have, you can raise your hand in this room if you haven't, done that, but.
Sometimes they go after.
Or after. All right, maybe people go straight to the wedding. Maybe they go get something to eat, and they walk over to Maker's Market or Farmer's Market area, and then they walk back. I mean, like Alderman Lysak, the idea is to create this walking neighborhood. People are going to pull in and park. So that continued parking discussion has to continue between us and Oak Brewery, etc. We're at a unique position where we have very limited parking.
And even with Maker's Road.
And Maker's Road. I mean, we want this.
Farmers market people would work there.
But as the other blue slide points out, there is a lot of street parking, and we talk often about how fast traffic is moving down National Avenue. Well, if you put street parking there, it's going to slow down traffic in that area. It's a natural buffer. The idea that you could walk 2 blocks, you could park at the senior center and walk over. That's 2 blocks away. It sits Saturday night doing nothing.
Pick and Save has a ton of parking
There's
available.
that's where maybe the private parties of Oak or Baum contact that and say, hey, I'd like to lease that back area of parking if we need additional parking in this area. It might evolve to that in time. I don't know, but it's the idea here is to create this destination. This is operating like a civic center in this area, and it's going to be full of activity, and it's going to spread out into this area. Maybe we get other reciprocal development in this area, but we want that walkable neighborhood feel. And you may park by the farmer's market and walk down. I mean, I think we're accustomed to that today. And, we don't have a parking structure nearby, but I don't know if that would even be something here that we should entertain, just the way future transportation is going and the cost of such a endeavor. So, that's what I wanted to add on the parking field, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in closed session.
Mr. President?
Alderman
Thank
Grisham.
you. Patrick, thank you so much for bringing up the parking, and I know we're gonna exhaust the topic, but I just want to bring this out in public, in open session. When I go to a wedding, or I go to an event, I Uber, you know, and with our drunk driving laws and people doing that, I believe that we're gonna make too much about the parking and not enough about the special event space itself. So, and coming from a business owner's perspective who's in that area on 70th and National, I can see all these puzzle pieces coming together. And this is a large piece that's completing what our vision is for, you know, our strategic goals and plans. So I thank you personally for coming and showing us your vision.
Thank you. We want to be a piece of the puzzle.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the developer?
Thank you all for your
If
time.
not, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you all.
And then for agenda item 2, the common council may convene in closed session pursuant to provisions of Wisconsin state statute, section 19.85, parent 1, parent E, for the purpose of deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties or investing of public funds. The common council may reconvene in open session after completion of the closed session to consider the balance of the agenda.
Motion to go into closed session.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Alderman Stefanski?
Aye.
Alderman Haas?
Aye.
Alderman Turner? Alderman Weigel?
Aye.
Alderwoman Keane?
Aye.
Alderwoman Grisham?
Aye.
Alderman Vitale?
Aye.
Alderman Reinke?
I
Alderman Rowe?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. We are now in closed session.
Aye.